Welcome to my channel, My Teacher. The 15th lesson in 10th science is nervous system. In this video, I am going to explain about the human nervous system. Human nervous system. Human nervous system is differentiated into central nervous system, peripheral nervous system, autonomic nervous system. The central nervous system acts as center for information processing and control. It consists of the brain and the spinal cord. The peripheral nervous system is made up of the nerves which connect the brain and spinal cord to all parts of the body. The autonomic nervous system is formed of sympathetic and parasympathetic nerves. Central nervous system. The brain and the spinal cord, being delicate vital structures, are well protected in bony cavities of the skull and the vertebral column respectively. So it is clear the brain is kept inside the skull and the spinal cord is kept inside vertebral column. Central nervous system is formed of two types of matter such as white matter or grey matter with respect to the presence or absence of myelin sheath. If the myelin sheath is present, it is called white matter, and if it is absent, it is called grey matter. The brain is the controlling center of all the body activities. It is covered by three connective tissue membrane or meninges. Dura mater is the outermost thick fibrous membrane. Arachnoid membrane is the middle thin vascular membrane providing web-like cushion. Third, pia mater is the innermost thin delicate membrane richly supplied with blood. Meningeal membranes protect the brain from mechanical injury. So, which are the three covering of the brain? Dura mater, arachnoid membrane and pia mater. A human brain is formed of three main parts. See the picture, you can see them clearly. Forebrain, midbrain, hindbrain. Forebrain. The forebrain is formed of cerebrum and diencephalon. The latter consists of dorsal thalamus and ventral hypothalamus. Cerebrum. It is the largest portion forming nearly 2/3 of the brain. You can observe cerebrum clearly in the picture. The cerebrum is longitudinally divided into two halves as right and left cerebral hemispheres by a deep cleft called median cleft. Two cerebral hemispheres are interconnected by thick band of nerve fibers called corpus callosum. The outer portion of each cerebral hemisphere is formed of grey matter and is called cerebral cortex. The inner or deeper part is formed of white matter and is called cerebral medulla. The cortex is extremely folded, forming elevations called gyri with depressions between them termed as sulci that increase its surface area. Each cerebral hemisphere is divisible into a frontal lobe, a parietal lobe, a temporal lobe and an occipital lobe. These lobes are also known as cerebral lobes and are associated with specific functions. Any damage in specific lobe in turn affects its function. The cerebrum is responsible for the thinking, intelligence, consciousness, memory, imagination, reasoning and willpower. Thalamus. Thalamus present in cerebral medulla is a major conducting center for sensory and motor signaling. It acts as a relay center. Hypothalamus. It lies at the base of the thalamus. It controls involuntary functions like hunger, thirst, sleep, sweating, sexual desire, anger, fear, water balance, blood pressure, etc. See the parts thalamus and hypothalamus in the picture. It acts as a thermoregulatory, that is temperature control center of the body. It controls the secretion of hormones from anterior pituitary gland and is an important link between nervous system and endocrine system. Midbrain. It is located between thalamus and hindbrain. The dorsal portion of the midbrain consists of 4 rounded bodies called corpora quadrigemina that control visual and auditory, that is hearing reflexes. Hindbrain. It is formed of 3 parts: cerebellum, pons and medulla oblongata. Cerebellum. It is the second largest part of the brain, formed of 2 large sized hemispheres and middle vermis. It coordinates voluntary movements and also maintains body balance. Pons. Pons, a Latin word meaning bridge. Did you see the structure pons in the diagram? It is a bridge of nerve fiber that connects the lobes of cerebellum. It relays signals between the cerebellum, spinal cord, midbrain and cerebrum. It controls respiration and sleep cycle. Medulla oblongata. Medulla oblongata is the posterior-most part of the brain that connects spinal cord and various parts of brain. It has cardiac centers, respiratory centers, vasomotor centers to control heartbeat, respiration and contraction of blood vessels respectively. It also regulates vomiting and salivation. Let us discuss the structure and function of parts of brain. Cerebral cortex, sensory perception, control of voluntary functions, language, thinking, memory, decision making. Thalamus, act as relay station. Hypothalamus, temperature control, thirst, hunger, urination, important link between nervous system and endocrine system. Cerebellum, maintenance of posture and balance, coordinate voluntary muscle activity. Pons and medulla, role in sleep-awake cycle, cardiovascular, respiratory and digestive control centers. Spinal cord. Spinal cord is a cylindrical structure lying in the neural canal of the vertebral column. It is also covered by meninges. It extends from the lower end of medulla oblongata to the first lumbar vertebra. The posterior-most region of the spinal cord tapers into a thin fibrous thread-like structure called filum terminale. Internally, the spinal cord contains a cerebrospinal fluid filled cavity known as central canal. The gray matter of spinal cord is H-shaped. You can see it in the picture. The upper end of letter H forms posterior horns and lower end forms anterior horns. A bundle of fibers pass into the posterior horn forming dorsal or afferent root. Fibers pass outward from the anterior horn forming ventral or efferent root. These two roots join to form spinal nerves. The white matter is external and have bundle of nerve tracts. Spinal cord conducts sensory and motor impulses to and from the brain. It controls reflex actions of the body. Cerebrospinal fluid. The brain is suspended in a special fluid environment called cerebrospinal fluid. It is lymph-like watery fluid that surrounds and protects the brain within the skull. It also fills the central canal of the spinal cord. Let us see the functions of cerebrospinal fluid. It acts as shock absorbing fluid and protect the brain from damage when it is subjected to sudden jerk. It supplies nutrients to the brain. It collects and removes waste from the brain. It is also responsible for maintaining a constant pressure inside the cranium. Reflex action. A reflex is any response that occurs automatically without consciousness. There are two types of reflexes. First one, simple or basic reflexes. These reflexes are inbuilt and unlearned responses. Many of the actions we perform in our day-to-day life are simple reflexes. Example, winking of eyes when any dust particles enters, sneezing, coughing, yawning, etc. We perform these actions without thinking. Acquired or conditioned reflexes. These reflexes are the result of practice and learning. Playing harmonium by striking a particular key on seeing a music note is an example of conditioned reflexes which required conscious training effort. Most of the reflex actions are monitored and controlled by the spinal cord, hence also known as spinal reflexes. The pathway taken by nerve impulse to accomplish reflex action is called reflex arc. Now let us understand how the body executes reflex action when we touch a hot plate. Unknowingly you are removing your hand from a hot object. How it is occurring? When we touch a very hot pan, the stimulus is a heat which is sensed by receptor called as heat receptors or thermoreceptors in our hand. This stimulus, that is heat, in turn triggers an impulse in sensory neuron. The sensory neuron transmits or conveys the message to the spinal cord. The spinal cord interprets the stimulus and the impulse is passed on to the relay neuron, which in turn transmits it to a motor neuron. Motor neurons carry command from spinal cord to our arm. Muscle in our arm contracts and we withdraw our hand immediately from the pan. In this example, muscle is an effector organ which has responded to the heat. Peripheral nervous system. Peripheral nervous system is formed by the nerves arising from the brain and the spinal cord. The nerves arising from the brain are called cranial nerves. Nerves arising from the spinal cord are called spinal nerves. Cranial nerves. In man, there are 12 pairs of cranial nerves. Some of the cranial nerves are sensory. For example, optic nerve which innervates the eye. Some are motor nerves which help in rotation of the eyeball. It also innervates the eye muscles, muscles of iris and tear gland. Spinal nerves. There are 31 pairs of spinal nerves. Each spinal nerve has a dorsal sensory root and the ventral motor root. The direction of impulse in dorsal spinal root is towards the spinal cord and in ventral spinal root away from the spinal cord. Autonomic nervous system. Autonomic nervous system is also called as visceral nervous system, as it regulates the function of internal visceral organs of our body through its two antagonistic, that is opposite components, which are the sympathetic and parasympathetic systems. They enable the body to perform rapid and specific visceral activities in order to maintain steady state. It controls the involuntary functions of the visceral organs. Thanks for watching my video. If you like this video, kindly subscribe my channel, My Teacher.